What is up, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of On the Bluff. I am your host, Christian Fowler. Joining me, as always, my producer, Kenny Stubblefield. No Gabe Coon this week. If you are watching on YouTube, you see that very clearly. If
Yep.
you're listening, you will also know quite quickly that there is no Gabe. It is me and Kenny. Kenny and Gabe got a few episodes by themselves. We had an episode with the three of us finally last week, and now we're down to me and Kenny. So obviously, life has been happening fast and furiously for
Yes.
all of us.
Yes.
So been a lot of sub outs the last couple weeks, but it is me and Kenny here. Kenny, how are you doing this week, brother?
Well, I guess I'm okay. I'm recovering from a leopard fight. I got into a fight with a leopard that was roaming the streets of Collierville.
Yeah, and if you only left with that, you must be a bad dude.
You ought to see that. You ought to see that leopard.
He better be sitting above the mantle.
No, you know what happened? Honestly, though, I'll be frank with you about it. This is what really happened. I'm trying to straight razor. Like I'm trying to trim up some things and like get things shaped up for the summer. It's my summer season, baby.
Right.
And I went after it and I went the wrong angle today. For the first time, I'm learning how to use a straight razor. And I went the wrong angle today. And it instantly I was like, ugly. And it started just spurting blood, bro.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
No good.
Crazy. Yeah, no
No
good.
good. How was the weekend? Anything fun this weekend? I know we talked about it last week. Volleyball's over for at least a minute until school season. So
Yeah.
what did this weekend look like?
Well, I was at the MSEC again, the Memphis Sports and Entertainment Center, once again to shoot an AAU tournament that was hosted by New Balance's P32 program, which is their kind of their Nike EYBL. It's called New Balance P32, and they had a big tournament at MSEC, and I was out there shooting for a team in particular. It's hilarious, bro. Like I don't I just I realize every once in a while, like, listen, I'm not poor. Like my wife and I make good money. Like we're doing fine for ourselves. Then you meet certain people that they just have FU money and they just do things with that money that you're like, damn, like this is crazy. So I went out and filmed for a production company out of LA that's filming a documentary for this 12-year-old team that plays in this New Balance P32 circuit. And it's funded by someone who's got FU money. And I'm like, what is the story we're trying to tell here? This is a 12-year-old basketball team. Like what are we doing?
Yeah, that's a tough ask.
And so I was just out there just filming stuff and was like, hey, and the check cashed and I'm good. So
That's all that matters. That's all that matters. But before I delve into my not too crazy weekend, if you're watching on YouTube, are we super big right now, Kenny? Or is this what you do for the two?
yeah, this is what we did. I've been working out, Christian.
Oh, so you're trying to show full
Well,
body game.
no, I mean we're just me and you are just both stout individuals, man. I don't know what to say.
I haven't been described as a stout individual in quite some years, but that was throwing me off. I had to check. I had to break the fourth wall for a minute and check.
Yeah.
Um,
we're a little bit bigger because we don't have three people squeezed in.
Yes, that makes sense. We're not three screens this week.
Right.
We're two screens. That's a plug for the YouTube. If you're not watching on YouTube and just listening, I encourage you to watch the actual YouTube stream where you can see us and kind of make fun of us if you want to. Like if you're not watching on YouTube, you have no idea what Kenny is talking about with the scratch on his face.
Well,
No
and
clue.
I'll be honest with you. This shot looks better than when it was me and Gabe together. Imagine the screen filled up with me and Gabe on the screen.
Big fellas.
Some big boys, you know.
Big fellas.
a
Yeah.
lot of facial hair, a lot of things happening. So
Yeah. This weekend for me was pretty chill. I was in Oxford all weekend. Double Decker was this weekend. I don't know how many people listening are familiar or if you're familiar, but that's kind of like it's like a festival type deal that's in Oxford every year. Festival is very loose because I feel like when you say festival, you think of rides and stuff like that.
right.
There's like concerts and different stages where you can go watch musical performances, and there's all kind of vendors out there
Yeah,
selling stuff on Saturday. So
that's cool.
that's it. We went last year also, and I know you're not very familiar with country artists. Last year was Flatland Cavalry,
Mm-mm.
which was insane. This year was. Do you know Charlie Crockett?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was about to say that's somebody more that you would know.
Oh yeah.
So Charlie Crockett was there Friday night, so we watched him for a little
How
bit.
good? How good was that?
He was good. I don't listen to a ton of his stuff, so like I'm not gonna sit here and act like I'm a massive fan. I do enjoy his music, but he's not somebody that I listen to all the time. But it was good. He put on a good show. He sounded good in person, which is kind of my barometer for if you're a good musician or not. Because
Yeah.
I've been and heard people that you listen to on the radio or on Apple Music or Spotify or whatever, and they sound terrible. But he actually sounded good, so it was fun. Um, that was Friday. Saturday, I barely got off the couch. Like I didn't do much of it. She had Anna Ruth had a wedding shower, and so she was gone for 4 or 5 hours. I laid on the couch, watched a movie, took a nap.
You kind of deserve it after the last couple of weeks you've had. You need to make sure you're rested, man. You've had a
I'm
busy, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not complaining at all. So it was pretty chill weekend, nothing too crazy. Watched a
Let
lot
me
of the NFL draft.
you mentioned Ole Miss, you mentioned Oxford, and makes me think of Ole Miss, obviously. And we're going to talk about kind of the bigger story about this, but this weekend was a reminder again of why I just cannot stand Ole Miss. Like just the students there, the dudes that are there.
Oh, don't go. It wasn't an Ole Miss student.
So he wore an Ole Miss shirt just because?
Yeah, I mean maybe he's a fan, but no, it was not an Ole Miss student. It was Jeff Ulbrich, who is the Falcons' defensive coordinator. It was his son Jax, which he is not an Ole Miss student. I thought the same thing when I saw it and did the same correlation. It was like,
These
man,
jackasses,
so
man.
many
Like,
just douchey frat guys. And I heard today. Well, I heard yesterday when the news came out that it was Jeff Ulbricht's son and one of his friends. Jeff Ulbricht's son was the guy in the background, not the guy with the Ole Miss sweatshirt. But I don't think either one of them was an Ole Miss student.
well, the fact that one of them had an Ole Miss sweatshirt to wear, was wearing an Ole Miss shirt, just tells me all I need to know about the douchiness of those guys. Like, just ridiculous.
Yeah.
We'll talk about Shedeur in a little bit, but in the hot three. But what a crazy! I applaud you for being able to go to Oxford and not pull your friggin' hair out every time you go.
I used to be such a bigger hater than I am now of just like the city. It's grown on me a lot. I used to know it as like when my friends would want to go down there and go out or something like that. And if you're in that crowd, then yeah, you're probably going to be a little bit more exposed to people that I wouldn't associate myself with.
Right.
But we don't do that. I mean, that we go out and eat and stuff like that. Like
Yeah.
we're not going out to bars down there and stuff like that. So my opinion's been changed to an extent. I think.
Well, it's partly because of the company that you keep. Anna Ruth is
Correct.
like the shining light of that city, right?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
she's the shining light. So the fact that you're there with her makes it
makes it a lot better. Yeah.
You could be anywhere and you'd be fine. But
100%.
it's just, but yeah, no. Anyway, let's move on. Let's get to let's actually get to some stuff, man.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit of Memphis. We don't have a ton of Memphis related sports news this week. There's been people, I think, was it Parth and John Martin that did an article and they discussed PJ Haggerty and his potential of return. I believe that's who it was. I saw Parth tweet it, and I think he said it was with John Martin.
Hey, shout out to Parth and John. I do not read y'all stuff, and so I don't know who it was. But I've been saying in the Discord for the last couple of weeks that I mean, and he even came out and said, PJ came out and said when he entered the portal that coming back to Memphis was an option.
Right.
It could very well happen, right? Like I don't know. Like I am not willing to put a percentage or anything like that on it happening. Could he come back? He's in the transfer portal. He could easily come back to Memphis. I don't know.
Okay, here's my big question now, though, because you would have to assume, obviously, like from the way this roster has been constructed, it was not done with a back of the brain thought of PJ Haggerty could still be a part of this equation, especially when you look at the vast majority of players that Memphis has added are guards. That to me would throw a wrench in things. And if he says, I want to come back, then yes, you open the doors and you make that happen regardless of what you have to do. And if you have to tell some guys, look, sorry, we don't have a spot, or it looks like your minutes just got cut in half or by more than that, then you got to do what you got to do. But I don't know. It's something that we'll wait and see on. I think if you brought this up last week, or if Gabe brought this up last week about, is it too? I think it was you. Is it too late? Like, why did he wait so long? All this kind of stuff. Our spots drying up. I still think somebody will swoop in and
Yeah.
make a bigger offer than what Memphis could make, more than likely. But I think everybody would welcome with open arms if he wanted to come back. Fans would quickly forget that he ever entered the transfer portal if he decided to come back. So I think clearly it would be a good thing for the program. It'd be a good thing for the team to not only have that continuity, but to have that star power, to have someone that at least locally people know his name, and a lot more people nationally know his name after this year and being a second team All-American versus playing as a freshman at Tulsa. So he brings more name value now.
Yeah.
He obviously would be the best player on the team once again. So I think it's something that would be welcomed with open arms. I think it could potentially complicate some things roster wise, kind of as I mentioned, and then you still need a little bit more size, in my opinion. And where, how are the funds allocated for that? Is there enough to go get someone that you feel like can actually contribute? There's a lot of question marks that come with it. And obviously it's all speculation right now. There's nothing that's really linking PJ to coming back to Memphis outside of, what he said when he entered the portal, and then people kind of being like, okay, nothing's happening. Let's connect some dots and say, if no one's going to pick him up, he'll come back to Memphis. So it's very speculative, but if it happened, clearly a good thing, in my opinion, for Memphis, first and foremost, obviously, but for PJ too. Like, he knows the system, he knows the coach, he's had success here. So I think it'd be welcomed on all parties. We'll just have to see if that's actually how it shakes out.
Yeah, Penny's talked about it numerous times over the last couple of weeks. I think he was at an event for the T-Dot, the trash pickup around the campus. He was there and he talked to the media, and he said, we talk all the time. He's like, PJ didn't leave on bad terms. Like, we talk all the time. We're in constant communication with each other. I think clearly if you get the opportunity to bring a PJ Haggerty back to this team, you do it. There has been nobody that's been picked up by the Tigers team out of the transfer portal that I would say you go, well, man, we got him, right?
Yeah.
Like, we got him.
He's our 2.0, like, he's our new version.
Yeah. Well, the one guy that I would think of would be a guy like Sincere Parker, right? A guy who, a 6'3", 6'4", super efficient guy who is just probably looking for more playing time. But let's not forget, man, like, he played at McNeese last year and didn't start for them. So it's not like he's being guaranteed, a certain role. And if you have the option, if Penny has the option to bring a guy like PJ back, then clearly you go to Sincere, you go to Zachary Davis, and you say, listen, you guys are awesome and you still have a spot on this team and we want you here. But right, like,
things clearly just changed,
right? And again, it speaks to what you were talking about even last week about the depth of this team, right? Like, to be like, if there is a player that says, man, I don't want to honor my commitment to the University of Memphis because they just brought PJ Haggerty back, then I think you just say, okay, like, we'll see you later, have a good one.
Yeah, you can't blame somebody for that.
You can't blame somebody for that at all. But again, if you're Penny Hardaway in the University of Memphis and you're Memphis Tiger fans, you say there is only positives about bringing a PJ Haggerty back, because you get your top line player, you get your top tier player, a guy who is going to command all the attention, who's the best player on the court. 90% of the time that he plays on a court, he's going to be the best player on that court, especially during conference play. And then you just go, and now we've got added depth. You've got a guy like
if things were to stick how they are now, then your depth looks much better than it did last year, even without Tyrese Hunter in the fold.
And it looks better than what it does right now. Like, it looks better right now than what it was before. So you bring PJ back, obviously you're adding a top tier guy, and you're adding to, the roster and to the depth of the roster. So I don't know. In terms of the financial aspects of it, I don't think, we had this discussion last week, I don't think that there's going to be a problem if PJ decides that he wants to come back, with Penny Hardaway making some phone calls and getting money in place for a PJ Haggerty. So the money that is being used to get all these other guys, that to me feels like that's a part of a separate fund, right? A separate fund to pay for, the kind of the back end of the roster. You get a guy like PJ Haggerty in the fold, you make phone calls and say, get him whatever he wants, right?
That's different. You're talking about different money there.
You're talking about different tax brackets, baby.
Yes.
But I just wonder, like, if one of the main reasons PJ would come back is because he waited to get in so long, and coming out and asking for $4 million and I want a starting point guard role. Like, are those things that are going to scare off teams that have the pockets to be able to do that? I don't know. We're hearing Texas. We're hearing NC State is involved. We're hearing, which would be crazy. What's his name is Will Wade. Your boy Will Wade is killing it over at NC State.
Yeah.
And then we're hearing Ole Miss, bro.
Chris Beard, another good recruiter. So
I'm gonna lose my stuff if he goes to Ole Miss, bro.
yeah, Memphis fans would not be cool with that whatsoever. But like, just to kind of put a bow on this conversation, when you look at what they have, you mentioned Sincere Parker and Zachary Davis, and then adding Doug McDaniel and Aaron Bradshaw. Like, if they were to, once again, all speculatory, but if they were to get him, this roster for the most part looks really, really good, and that's without getting even more speculative and saying if Dane Deja gets his waiver and is able to play also. So a lot of moving parts. It's that time of year where there's a lot of uncertainty for most college basketball programs, and that's the case in Memphis, like it is most places.
That's right.
But I think that he's got a plan for either way that this pans out. Whether PJ comes back or goes somewhere else, I think he's got a pretty good plan set in place for what he wants to do. That's really all we got on Memphis basketball this week. Not a ton going on. So let's shift gears and talk a little bit of Tigers in the NFL draft. I just nailed exactly what you put in the headline and didn't even know it. I guess I've seen a few of those.
We've been doing this for a while together, yeah. Christian.
It was a disappointing weekend for University of Memphis football players. Shockingly, the only Memphis football player drafted was Mr. Irrelevant, Kobe Minor.
Crazy.
Who transferred over from Indiana before the season, had a solid year, but wasn't somebody that when you said Memphis and the draft, that's not someone we directly correlated to being drafted, especially the only Tiger being drafted. I mean,
right.
We expected Chandler Martin to go somewhere just because of his production and what he can do. Obviously, undersized was the whole reason that he was talked about being a later round pick. But I mean, I listened to a lot of draft analysts, Todd McShay being one of them, who's big at ESPN. Mel Kiper, I'm not the biggest fan of, but you still hear and see his stuff. And I know those two guys specifically, at least, and I think Matt Miller at ESPN also was one that was high on him. They had like 4th and 5th round grades.
So crazy
on Chandler Martin.
Yeah.
Seth Hennigan was one that we really thought could be 6th, 7th round. Undrafted wasn't overly surprising with him. But to see him not get drafted was like, okay. And then for it to be Kobe Minor is kind of crazy. So we had, what was it? Rock Taylor signed a UDFA deal with the Steelers. Seth Hennigan going to Jacksonville. Chandler Martin to Baltimore, which is a great fit. It's Baltimore. They're historically very good defensively. I like Zach Orr as a young defensive coordinator. Couple other guys, a couple guys got rookie minicamp invites. So we'll see if anybody sticks. I would think Chandler has a good shot. Because Baltimore's linebackers aren't super deep. You obviously have Roquan Smith, and they drafted Trenton Simpson, I believe is his name. They drafted him out of Clemson last year, and he played a big role as a rookie. So they don't have a ton of depth at linebacker. So I could see them with how creative they typically are with their defenses, and with Zach Orr being a younger defensive coordinator, I could see them making a way for him to succeed and seeing if he was actually good enough to make the roster. So I think he's got a good shot. Seth, I mean, quarterbacks, you're not going to keep a bunch of them, but there's not a lot of good ones. So if he impresses at all, I would think he has a shot to stick as a third-string quarterback in Jacksonville. So there's some opportunities out there, and we'll see. But it was, I will admit, especially Chandler, you feel terrible for him because we know him decently well and have done a lot of stuff with him, done multiple interviews with him, dating back to right when he committed to Memphis. And I know he works hard. I know he's a super smart, well-rounded kid, and he's obviously incredible on the field as well. So to see him not get drafted, it kind of sucked. But I think he's one of those guys that he can find his way in the league if he's 100% all in.
Yeah, I watched the John Gruden QB video that he did with Seth, and I honestly, coming away from that, was like, Seth's gonna get picked somewhere, right?
Yeah.
He just
And John
loves
Gruden
this.
was super impressed.
And then I watched the rest of them this year, and he was super impressed with everybody. There was not
That's
a single
true.
quarterback that he wasn't impressed with.
Yeah.
He loved everything these teams ran, everything that they did. He loved what they did. So maybe the exuberant praise for Seth Hennigan was not just because it was Seth Hennigan and what he did out there on the field. He did, I think, kind of try to alleviate some of the issues I think surrounding Seth, and that's arm strength, right? Like, how can he throw every ball that needs to be thrown in the NFL? And he kept saying it over and over again. There's not a throw he can't make. There's not a throw he can't make. That's to be determined. I think we'll see what he does in training camp and things like that. But it's weird, and we'll talk about the NFL draft as a whole in the hot three. But this seemed like a really, like, once other things started happening with the quarterback position in this draft, I definitely was like, I don't think Seth's going to get picked, because it just felt like there was just not there was not a lot of demand for quarterbacks in this draft class.
And that's something that we'll see every once in a while with weak quarterback classes. And we knew this was a weak quarterback class coming into the weekend. Like, anybody that says otherwise is just not telling the truth. And you kind of see that with teams just being uninterested, and why am I going to take this guy when this draft is so deep on the defensive line and the offensive line and in the second, other areas are so deep in this draft. Why am I going to take a quarterback that would typically be a UDFA in the 5th, 6th, 7th round,
right?
When there's still players out there that we feel like, can potentially make the team, or be a special team contributor or surprise and help later in the season. It just doesn't make sense to take a risk on a quarterback that in 90% of the years would not be drafted. So it wasn't surprising, but I think you're right. I think that kind of let us know owners and GMs and scouts are not enamored with this quarterback class, and he was already further down the list.
Right.
So it wasn't looking good from him once you got to like the 5th and 6th round and saw the names that were going.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, Quinn Ewers was a 7th round pick.
It's crazy.
Which is crazy. I mean, he is the highest rated high school prospect of all time, and he was a seventh round pick that a lot of people said, why did the Dolphins even take the flyer on him? He should have been a UDFA. So it was a weak quarterback class. The teams clearly weren't enamored with any of these guys, and it led to guys like Seth just falling off boards and being a UDFA. But
he can make a team. He can make a roster. Yeah,
he can make a chance. I mean, you can't say he doesn't. So,
who do you think, like, if Cam Ward were to come out of the class, what was in your idea, like in the last couple of years, what class, NFL quarterback class, draft class was the best? What year?
The best?
Yeah, pretty stacked. It was a few years ago.
I mean, last year, just playing off a recency bias, but still, I mean, you look at that quarterback class. Caleb Williams, I think 99% of people think he's going to turn it around. Jaden Daniels looks like a perennial All-Pro type of player. Bo Nix was incredible as a rookie, which a lot of people didn't expect. JJ McCarthy went in the first round.
Drake May.
And he was projected to start before he got injured. Drake May, who has a lot of promise and upside. Michael Penix, who's one of my, has been one of my favorites for a couple of years. And I think he could be really good this year in Atlanta. So, I mean, that quarterback class was really good. And
where would Cam be in that class?
I think he probably would have been QB 4 or 5.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, he would have definitely been behind Caleb and Jaden. No doubt.
Yeah.
Personally, I would have had him behind Penix too. I would have had him as probably my 4th quarterback. I think I would have had him over McCarthy and Nix, because I was not a Nix guy going into the draft at all.
Right.
So yeah, I would have had him at 4 or 5. I think I probably would have had him over McCarthy and Nix. So I probably would have had him at 4.
That's wild. Yeah. And apparently JJ McCarthy's killing it in Minnesota. They gave what's his name?
Sam
Darnold the boot, right? After he led them to, the record that he did, 14 wins in his comeback season. now he's gone, and it's
Yeah.
JJ McCarthy, his team. So
Yeah. So I mean, I know it is recency because it was last year, but that class looks like it could be historically good. Like, I mean, it looks like you could have 3 or 4 perennial Pro Bowl guys in that class, which doesn't happen very often. So I think it was this year. It was Cam Ward, and I mean, we saw it in just because of the way the players were drafted. But I mean, it was Cam Ward up here, and then everybody else.
Yes, everybody else. Well, shout out to Kobe Minor. Had 1 year at Memphis, and left to go. He entered the transfer portal, then he went to the draft, and Mr. Irrelevant. You think he has a shot to? He got drafted, so that means they think highly of him. Apparently,
yeah. I mean, he has an outside chance. If you have the last pick in the draft, what you're going to do is take more than likely the highest player on your board, the player that you think, this guy has the highest percent chance to make the roster, and we don't want him going in to being an undrafted free agent and having a choice of where he goes. So, I mean, 7th round pick. So how highly can you really think of someone? But clearly they liked him enough to say, we don't want this guy going to the open market. We want to bring him in with the last pick. So, I mean, he has an outside chance. Corner is a hard position to adjust to also. But, I mean, he was solid in his year at Memphis. He was solid in Indiana. Like, he could be one of those guys that at least sticks on special teams. Like, if he comes in day one and shows, like, look, I'm willing to be a gunner and go fly down there and hit people, that's how he's going to make the team. He's not going to make the team from being a great corner. I mean, he's a 7th round, last pick in the entire draft. He would have to make it on special teams.
Yeah. Well, shout out to Kobe Minor, first Tiger drafted in the NFL draft since Calvin Austin a few years ago. So I think what was it?
Nobody in the last 2 years.
Nobody in the last 2 years. So shout out to him. Probably not the guy we thought would be the guy drafted.
No, but it's good. I mean, if you're a collegiate program that wants to be highly thought of, then you need players to be drafted, and it's at least one. It might be the last pick of the draft, but it's at least one.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah. They need to have more people drafted. That's what you're saying.
Yeah. All right. Well, I know that was a pretty quicker than normal Tiger segment, but like I said, we don't have a lot going, and I know at least I am excited to talk NFL draft. I know Kenny is at least excited to talk NBA playoffs.
I'm excited to hear you talk NFL draft.
Okay. Well, at least there's that. So we're going to take a quick break, and we will be back on the other side with the Hot 3.
But they have to be able to play harder at a higher level and still be able to execute for longer stretches to give themselves a realistic chance of winning a game. Because when you play against this caliber of team, sometimes it just takes your will and your want to have to be more than theirs. And right now, I just still feel like even though the Thunder being the number 1 seed, the expected team, they've played with more desperation for longer stretches than the Grizzlies have. Why it has been so lopsided is because the better team and who they've been all season is still playing harder than the other team. So if the better team also plays harder, then those two, if you put that plus that equals what has happened.
Yeah.
Tune in to the Night Court podcast with your hosts, Rob Fisher and Brevin Knight, on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
I'm not trying to kick a dead horse, but this team looks like a team that was allowed to and had a lot of bad habits. And I'll say this, bro, bitch assness was allowed and is pouring through these dudes' veins for too long. I think a lot of the allegations that have been given to the Grizzlies, they're real, man. Front runner. You got to take that. We front runners.
Front runners, bro.
Soft, yes. When Draymond Green came out and said about the team having the DNA of the coach, it's Taylor Jenkins shit. And them dudes that's on the coach they've had. It's a lot of soft, weak-ass shit that's in this team, man. It's just weird basketball we play. Yep. And it's because we've been doing this stuff for so long. And whether it's Tomas Isolo or whoever you got as your coach next year, it's a lot of stuff we're going to have to get uprooted, like truly uprooted, to get these guys to be whatever they're going to be.
Tune in to The Anthony Sane Show, Wednesdays and Fridays at 12 p.m. weekly on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
Oh, yeah. I'm not messing this up. I've got the hot three ready to go. You ready to get into the hot three?
I'm ready to do it.
Let's do it, man. This weekend, let me turn this down just a little bit. This weekend was a good weekend for you. I'd never hear you get like emotionally invested into topics around sports outside of NFL and especially the NFL draft. Like you just freaking love it. And you start naming names and I'm like, who the hell? How do you know all these people? So let's get into it. The NFL draft was this weekend. Who was the biggest winner? What team did you see that just dominated this draft?
Yeah, there was a lot of ones that I really liked. Typically the Cowboys do really well over the last couple of years. I've been very not happy with what they did. I think the Cowboys had a really good draft.
Of course you did.
You say of course. That's a pretty rare take for me. I know a lot of people were not overly excited with Tyler Booker at 12, but if you've listened to me talk about the draft leading up to it, Tyler Booker was one of my favorite players.
Yep.
Thought he was one of the safest players. Fills a position of need, so I like Tyler Booker. I like Donovan Ezeruku in the second round. Ezeruku, however you say his name, defensive end from Boston College. Siobhan Revelle from East Carolina in the third round. Could have been a first-round pick if he didn't tear his ACL in September. Finally getting some running backs. Jaden Blue from Texas, who ran a 4.38 with a grade 2 groin strain.
Let's go.
Phil Maffa in the seventh round from Clemson, like 6'1", 245, and we grabbed some defensive tackles in there as well. So I thought we had a good draft. I don't know how much it'll matter this season. Once again, it's a lifelong pessimist, so I don't really know.
You ain't dead yet, Christian. You ain't dead yet.
No, not yet. I ain't dead yet, so there ain't no Super Bowl coming. I don't like when NFC East teams have good drafts, but the Philadelphia Eagles, per usual, had a really good draft. Jahad Campbell in the first round, to me, was another one of the safest players. They moved up a spot, which was strange, and got him. They also got Andrew Makuba from Texas, who I think is a solid safety, Mac McWilliams. So another solid draft from Howie Roseman and the Eagles. But honestly, my favorite draft in the NFC East, this never happens, but it was the Giants. Like, they're typically not great at drafting. They couldn't really miss on Abdul Carter at 3. I mean, once Cam Ward and Travis Hunter were off the board, it was obvious that Abdul Carter was the next guy. I think he can be a very similar player to Micah Parsons, like can be a 12 to 16 sack per year kind of guy. They're very much in the same mold, just as far as, size, strength, speed, very similar players. Look similar, wore the same number at Penn State. So I like Abdul Carter. I like the aggressiveness of coming back up in the first round and getting Jackson Dart, who was clearly their guy. And I really do think he was. Like, I heard a lot of people talking about it leading up to the draft. The Giants, are they in love with Shedeur as much as people say? And I heard a lot of analysts say, look, Brian Daboll has a type when it comes to quarterbacks. He likes big, strong, and at least somewhat mobile. I mean, Josh Allen is like his prize creation that he made in Buffalo from a raw, who knew where he was going to turn out quarterback into an MVP.
Right.
And so Jackson Dart fit that mold, and Tyler Shuck from Louisville fit that mold. And so it was kind of which one, if they do move up, is it going to be? I like Jackson Dart. I think he's got a good arm. I think he's got good anticipation on his throws. And he has the benefactor that so few rookie quarterbacks get of he has Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston in that locker room with him. Say what you want to about Russ. Say what you want to about Jameis. They've been through a lot of ups and downs in the NFL. They've seen pretty much everything you can see, from a 30-touchdown, 30-interception season from Jameis to 2 Super Bowl appearances and 1 victory for Russell Wilson. Like, those are guys that can really pour into him, and if he does have what it takes mentally and physically, like, they can help mold him in to a really good pro quarterback, along with Brian Daboll, who is considered one of the best quarterback gurus in the league. So I think it was a perfect landing spot for him, and I think it's the perfect quarterback for Brian Daboll. They also got Cam Skattebo in the 4th round.
I love that pickup, man.
Yeah, I think that's a great compliment to Tyrone Tracy, who they drafted in the 5th round last year. He's a little bit smaller, not as great in short yardage, but to have Cam Skattebo, who is just like pit bull is like the best way to describe him. He fits really well with what they want to do. So I liked their draft a lot. The Patriots, I like theirs a lot as well. Mike Vrabel is one of my favorite coaches in the league, and it mainly centers around their first 2 picks, as it does for most teams. I mean, deeper in the draft, it's hard, but Will Campbell at number 4 is perfect for Drake May. They needed a left tackle that could keep him upright. And then they got Travion Henderson in the 2nd round, who is
You talked about him last week. You loved him.
I love Travion Henderson. Like, Ashton Genty, to me, yes, was the best, was the number 1. But it wasn't as much of a drop-off from him to Travion Henderson, in my opinion, as a lot of other people had it. I mean, you got to think Ashton Genty goes, 6 overall, and Travion Henderson goes 38 overall. So I love the value. I think him and Ramondre Stevenson pair well together in that backfield. I know people were clamoring for a receiver for them, which they got in the 3rd round, and Kyle Wilson from Washington State. But this was not a good receiver draft, and there was not really a lot of people at that 30th pick that you look at and go, okay, he's going to be a difference maker. They could have got Luther Burden. We'll see. I think that's not a sure thing. Travion Henderson, to me, is a sure thing. He's good in the passing game, dangerous in the running game, great in pass pro. So I think he immediately helps their offense. I think those 2 picks were very Drake May friendly. I like the Bears draft too. They got Colston Loveland in the 1st round from Michigan, which was surprising to a lot of people that he went over Tyler Warren. But I think you trust Ben Johnson and what he says about pretty much any offensive player. And then they got Luther Burden in the 2nd round, which if you get him, like if the Patriots get him and he's expected to be probably their number 1 at least until Stephon Diggs comes back from the ACL injury, I don't love that. But you put him in Chicago where he's got DJ Moore and Rome Odunze and Colston Loveland and Cole Kmet, then I go, okay, I'll take a shot on that guy as my number 3 receiver in the 2nd round. So I love what they did at the top, just getting more dynamic for Caleb Williams and really trying to make that explosive offense. It should be a top 10 bare minimum unit this year. I mean, with Ben Johnson, them building the offensive lineup and their skill position. So those are a few. I could go on and talk about every single team, but those are a few that I really liked. I think you see a couple of those teams, like I mentioned with the Patriots and the Bears, really helping out their young quarterbacks, and then you see some of these other teams trying to get quarterbacks, trying to get missing pieces. So I think those teams are the ones that stuck out to me. I think they did a really good job of building towards this year.
And I want us to talk about now some of the losers of this weekend in terms of the draft.
Yeah.
And I know you got a team you're probably going to talk about, but I want you to save it for the next topic that we discuss.
Okay.
Because they just don't make any sense to me. But what are some of the losers from this year's draft?
The biggest one to me, and this is pretty much consensus, a lot of people have agreed on this, like being just a not great draft, was the Cincinnati Bengals. We know their defense was terrible last year. I mean, just not good defensively at all. And they've got this contract dispute with Trey Hendrickson. What are they going to do? Are they going to trade him? Are they going to pay him? What's going to happen there? And in the 1st round, they take Shamar Stewart for Texas A&M, who a lot of people really like, but he is the prototypical traits over production. In his career, he had 4.5 sacks.
It's crazy.
As a defensive end. Like, this is not a 1-tech or a 3-tech that we're talking about. This is a defensive end who played on a defensive line with Nick Scourton, who transferred in from Purdue, and some other really productive guys. And in his career, only had 4 sacks. So, traits are there. He's a monster physically. But could you really afford to take someone that's not a sure thing at number 17 overall, especially on defense? They got Demetrius Knight in the 2nd round from South Carolina. Okay. They got Barrett Carter in the 4th round from Clemson, another linebacker. Honestly, I like him more than Demetrius Knight. And that was about it. Like, they just didn't do much. They didn't have a ton of picks. They only had 6 picks. But they didn't overhaul this defense to the point where you felt like they really added some guys that could make them better. I mean, their secondary was awful last year. They didn't take a single player in the secondary, not a corner, not a safety, nothing. They took 2 linebackers and a defensive end. And this team just needs a lot more to me than that. So I didn't love their draft. That's one that really stuck out to me. I think the Dolphins, too, was another one that I was not at all crazy about. Which this stuff doesn't matter at all. Like, if 2 players from that draft class are really good, then that's an A-plus draft. So, I mean, this is all very guess. This is a guess game.
Right.
But for me, like, look at Miami too. They took Kenneth Grant in the first round from Michigan, who that was a little rich for my blood for him. Jonas Savigny from Arizona at guard. I like him. Jordan Phillips, defensive tackle from Maryland in the 5th. This was really their problem. They just didn't have draft capital. I mean, they had a 1st and 2nd, and then
a 5th.
All day 3 picks. I mean, it was a 5, 5, 5, 6, 7, 7, all day 3 picks. So it's kind of hard to judge it off of that.
Right.
But kind of just like with the Bengals, if Kenneth Grant turns out to be a really good defensive tackle and Jonas Savigny ends up being a really good guard, then that's a win for a class. But they're a team that I feel like has a lot of needs, and they didn't have the capital to do it. They weren't aggressive with all these day 3 picks and moving up. I mean, you could package some of these picks with having, 6, is that right? Yeah, 6 day 3 picks and try to get up into the 3rd round and get some more difference makers. But they didn't. So I didn't love those were the 2 that I was kind of just not very excited over.
What just seems weird to me about the Dolphins is that they looked dominant when they had Tua out there, right?
Right.
But they couldn't keep him healthy. They couldn't keep him off the ground. And did they even go get one? We went and got Jonas Savigny. I don't even know how you Savigny as a guard, but that is literally all they did to try to protect him. Right.
And I mean, I like the fact that they took a swing on Quinn Ewers. We talked about a little bit earlier in the episode. Like, they need a backup quarterback for Tua desperately. They got Zach Wilson in the offseason, but whatever. Like, they needed somebody that they could develop. And if they're going to keep Tua long term, sign him to another contract. Like, they need a guy that can be a true backup. Quinn has all the talent in the world. Like, we know that.
Right.
Can he put it together? Can Mike McDaniel help him put it together and him be, at worst, a trusty backup quarterback? So, I mean, all these teams, I can find things that I like and dislike with pretty much every team. Right. But like I said, those 2 were kind of underwhelming to me.
Well, to me, the Cleveland Browns are another team that I'm just like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing out there, right? Like, what picks are you making out there? We talked about it earlier on in the Tigers in the NFL draft segment, where we talked about the lack of, like, it seemed clear that people just did not really enjoy this QB class very much. And the whole narrative, this entire leading up to the draft, was Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders. Was Shedeur Sanders dropping all the way to the 4th round, or was he 5th round? Was this the most surprising drop you've ever seen in terms of the draft?
Yeah, I said it during it, and I've never been huge on the Shedeur bandwagon, and you can back that. Like, I've never. I think Gabe likes Shedeur a lot more.
Gabe loves Shedeur Sanders. Yes.
I've never really stood up and thumped my chest for Shedeur Sanders, just because I think there were a lot of limitations. Did I ever think that he would be a 5th round pick? No. Do I understand why? For the most part, I think I do.
What are the reasons why? Because let me ask you, and we'll get into this. The narrative from the initial instant reaction was just a vibrant, like a guy, a cocky, arrogant, wore chains out there on the field all the time, was very vocal about how he thinks he's this, that, and the third out there. And that his persona, the way that he presents himself, really turned a lot of teams off.
Yeah.
Then some other reports are coming out now where maybe he phoned it in during some of these interviews with some of these teams, and that could be the reason why he dropped, because he was just super unimpressive. What are your thoughts on why?
Yeah, I mean, okay, there's a lot to unpack with this, honestly. It's a very nuanced conversation. I think he got very overhyped because of who he is, being Shedeur Sanders, playing for Deion, being one of the biggest stars in college football, and having good numbers and throwing to who was ultimately the Heisman Trophy winner. And you got Deion coming out saying he'll be a top 5 lock, all this thing. And a lot of people buy into that stuff. A lot of people are casual fans that do not understand past the surface level. And so when he's saying stuff like that, and they're seeing some people agree with that, then they jump into that.
Right.
So there's that layer of it, which I think is probably the most minute because I think a lot of analysts had him in the first or second round. Secondly, you start hearing reports like you're saying he sandbagged interviews, and if he didn't want to go there, didn't feel like he would be on the board when that team picked, which ironically enough, he ended up being on the board when all 32 teams picked at least 4 times.
Multiple times. Right.
It's kind of a crazy thing to do, especially as a player who's supposed to be the leader of the team.
Let me ask you this, though. Gabe brought this up in a conversation on Twitter this weekend, and I thought it was a fair counterpoint to this. Is why is Shedeur and the conversation around what Dion is, because I think Shiloh even came out and said that Dion was representing both of them as their agent for a while, and there was the rumors and the talks about he won't go here, he'll go here, he won't go here. The Manning family did the same thing, right? Like this happened numerous times. Why was that not like looked at so badly as the way that Shedeur?
Oh, it was when Eli Manning did that to the Chargers. It pissed a lot of people off.
Okay,
but Eli Manning was a whole heck of a lot better than Shedeur Sanders.
Okay,
and I mean that just is what it is. If Shedeur Sanders was really a top 5 talent in this draft, do you think that these interviews would have mattered as much as they did? No,
probably not.
Not by any means. If he was a surefire top 5 prospect in this draft to NFL teams, they would still pick him.
Yeah.
Players get taken all the time that are caught up in a lot crazier stuff than Shedeur Sanders. So if they really felt that the talent was that high and he was that much of a can't-miss prospect,
right,
they're willing to overlook that stuff. I mean, there's been plenty of quarterbacks taken in the first round who had terrible Wonderlic scores or who were bad interviewers. Like that, to me, I've heard people saying that. I think it's kind of a cop-out.
You think so?
Yeah. So, I mean, doing bad interviews is terrible. I think there were rumors coming out that multiple GMs had said that he had the worst formal interviews they had ever had in their careers.
What do you think that means? As somebody who understands the game of football and how those interviews go, what does that mean? He just wouldn't talk, or did he not know what he was doing?
I think it means that he, from reading between the lines, and so this is kind of speculatory, but just from what I've seen and read and stuff, it sounds like he basically thought he was already like the dude. Like,
yeah.
Which confidence is great. Like quarterbacks have to have confidence to be successful. But to be a collegiate player who already thinks that you're like the best and you're too good for everybody else is not a good thing. And I don't know that to be true. I'm just, like I said, just reading between the lines on what was said. So I think those are factors in it. I think here's another big one in my opinion. Could be totally wrong. So if Shedeur doesn't go in the first or second round, that a team is getting him to be their presumptive starter, right, i.e. Cam Ward, Jackson Dart eventually, Tyler Shuck for the Saints. Like if a team's not looking at him and saying this guy's going to compete to be a starter day one,
then why take him?
Yeah. If you're drafting a backup quarterback, you do not want that guy to be the biggest story on the team. You just don't. You don't. When do you ever hear stories or hear anything about backup quarterbacks? Never, unless the starting quarterback gets hurt. That's when you want to hear about the backup quarterback. You don't want a media circus and a media whirlwind surrounding a backup quarterback, because what that does, it breeds controversy in your quarterback room.
And you do not want that.
And you do not want that whatsoever.
Right.
So I think that played a role into it. And I think he eventually fell far enough that Cleveland said, we got to do it. We don't have a starting quarterback. Yeah, we drafted Dylan Gabriel in the 3rd round.
But come on, man.
But if this dude does pan out, because he does have talent, I'm never going to say that he doesn't have talent and could not be a very successful quarterback in the NFL, because I don't believe that. But it's like Cleveland got to a point where it's like, okay,
we got to take him.
We've got to take him. We took a quarterback 50 picks ago in Dylan Gabriel.
Right.
But we got to take Shedeur. We got to take a swing. I mean, we've been in quarterback hell for so long. This Deshaun Watson stuff didn't pan out. We got to give it a shot. And I don't blame him. At that point, 5th round picks. I mean, there's people picked in the 5th round all the time where you go, wow, I cannot believe that person just went in the 5th.
Right.
That's when you start going and taking your guys.
Yeah.
And so I don't blame them for it at all. I don't fault them for it at all. They could look like geniuses on the other side of this. And what's the downside of it? There's none. There's none, in my opinion. Like, okay, Shedeur doesn't pan out, and he ends up being a backup or a third-string quarterback. Go look at the fifth-round quarterbacks taking a year. They're typically going to be backup quarterbacks or third-string quarterbacks. There's no downside to it for him. If he pans out and ends up being a perennial Pro Bowl quarterback, then they look like geniuses because they're the team that finally said, you know what, we're just going to take him and see what happens. So I think it is a very nuanced, multifaceted argument for why he ended up falling and being a fifth-round pick. I think a lot of people get lazy with these narratives and start throwing stuff out there that's pretty idiotic, and I don't really care to go into specifics of what those are, but yeah, that's the true, to me, that's the true reasons for why it happened.
Well, it looks like, I mean, obviously the biggest question mark coming into the season is the quarterback room in Cleveland. I mean, they've got Deshaun Watson, who's got obviously the Achilles situation, Joe Flacco,
40-something years old,
who's older than me, which is there's no way I'm going to be an NFL quarterback. Then they got Kenny Pickett, they've got Dylan Gabriel, and Shedeur Sanders. 5 quarterbacks on this roster. So clearly that's the question mark, right? Like, we know Deshaun, and I think, isn't Kenny Pickett injured as well?
No, he's not.
Do you think they have a starting quarterback on that roster? Do you think Shedeur has a chance to do?
I mean, he has a chance. He definitely has. Okay. I think Joe Flacco starts day one if he's healthy.
Right.
100%. Like, he's better than Kenny Pickett. Might not make this roster. Genuinely. So I think Flacco's the day one starter regardless of how it shakes out. Because he's got experience not only as a, overall being a vet, but he has experience in the system, has played under Kevin Stefanski. Like, Stefanski's going to trust him out there week one. But to me, after that, I mean, it's Dylan Gabriel versus Shedeur Sanders for QB of the future. Because clearly, if you draft 2 quarterbacks, you're not worried about Deshaun Watson. They're going to get out of that deal after this year, I would imagine. I think it's a fully guaranteed contract, but still, if they can get rid of him after this year, I would, and just kind of get rid of that saga. But to me, that's what it is. It's Dylan Gabriel, Shedeur Sanders for QB of the future. That's why they drafted 2 of them, a la Kirk Cousins, RG3, even though that was, a number 2 overall pick and a 5th-round pick. But it's the same thing. It's like, look, we're going to take 2 of these guys. We have them. They probably had them pretty similarly ranked on their boards, and we'll see which one pans out. And hopefully one of them does, is what they're hoping for. But yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting thing. The fall is a very interesting thing, and then how it's going to shake out over the next couple of years, to me, is also very interesting. So I know a lot of people hated on their draft as a whole.
It's actually not bad. It's actually not bad.
Their draft. I mean, Mason Graham was one of the elite players on paper in this draft. Him and Myles Garrett on the same defensive line should really be a good combo. Carson Schlesinger from UCLA, I like him at the linebacker position, with pairing him up with Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. They double dipped at running back as well with Quinshon Judkins and Dylan Sampson.
Which, listen,
like both of those guys.
Yeah, listen. I mean, those guys are both game-breaking running backs.
Yeah, and I mean, Quinshon's more of your early down, grind them out. He's big, 220 pounds, and Dylan Sampson is electric just as far as speed goes. I mean, he's a home run hitter. So I love both of those guys. And then Harold Fannin out of Bowling Green was extremely productive at tight end. And he didn't get as much love because he was from Bowling Green and, wasn't mentioned up there with Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland. But, like, as far as a receiving tight end goes, him and David Njoku is a great combo. So I liked what they did in the draft. Yep. I mean, I'm sure – they didn't have a ton of picks, didn't have anything after the 5th round. So – they weren't able to get as much, especially when they double dipped at 2 positions. Right. But I like what they did. I think they still need receiver help. I think they signed Deontay Johnson today, actually, which
they did could
potentially help them out if he kind of reverts back to his Pittsburgh self and doesn't do what he did this year. But yeah, I like what they did.
It actually is. As I looked back at the draft, I was like, you know what? I actually kind of don't mind what they did here. I think
I like it.
Getting those 2 running backs, obviously. I mean, they're basically starting from scratch in a lot of ways, right? Yes. And
Nick Chubb's one.
Yeah.
Deshaun Watson's probably is not going to play anymore as a Cleveland Brown. Yeah, like they are in a transitional state.
And so when you go and get my biggest issue was like, why do you then pick Dylan Gabriel and then go pick Shedeur 2 rounds later? Like, it just
didn't think he'd be there.
Because number one, you didn't think he'd be there. That's a good point. And then number 2, it's like, This is an open quarterback battle here.
What do you have to lose?
Like, what do you have to lose here? What you spent a 5th round pick on a guy who
that could pan out.
That could
really
be your guy.
Yeah.
Right? Could be your guy.
Definitely.
So not a bad deal. So I'll take Cleveland off of the worst of the draft and we'll move them towards the middle. They're in the transition period right now.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's get to the last topic. Let's talk NBA playoffs. Obviously, the Grizzlies are out. They are done. They got swept. But
so that means we can talk about everybody else then.
Right. I will say they did every game they looked better. They only lost by 2 the last game without Ja Morant. So terrible way to – I mean, just you learned a lot, I think, about the Grizzlies, but they're done. They're in Cancun, so let's send them off to the pasture for the year, and let's talk the rest of the NBA playoffs. What's playoff matchup have you been just glued into and loving the most?
You already know.
I know.
The Nuggets and the Clippers has been
phenomenal.
Wonderful. As we talked about, I think we talked about it before the playoffs started. Like, on paper, that was the one that you circled. And it's been great.
Everything you could ask for, yeah.
You look at that, what was it, Saturday? Yeah, I'm looking right now. Yeah, Saturday. The buzzer beater from Aaron Gordon.
Crazy.
Just insane. And in that game, Jokic has 36, 21, and 8. And there was a 22-point comeback by the Clippers in the 4th quarter in that game to get it to where the Nuggets had to hit a buzzer beater to win it. So that's been a great series. Honestly, overall, like, I don't know if it's kind of that recency bias thing, but this first round has been better than a lot that I can remember. Even the ones that are 3-1. Like, when you look at the Knicks and Pistons,
that's such a good series.
An extremely competitive series. Even though the Knicks are up 3-1, those games have been tight.
Yes.
Really tight.
Same with the Lakers and Timberwolves.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Lakers Timberwolves is 3-1, but those games have been really good, competitive, fun games. Watching Anthony Edwards and Luka and LeBron and Julius Randle like duke it out. That's been a really fun series too. It really the only ones that you look at and go haven't been great. The Cavs are about to sweep the Heat. I think they put up 43 in the first quarter as we were recording. Yeah, they're up 98-53 with 4 minutes left in the third. So that series has not been competitive at all. Pacers Bucks really hasn't been competitive, and unfortunately, looks like Dame. Phillies, that you got to feel bad for him, especially coming off the blood clots, trying to come back for the playoffs.
Is it not crazy though that the Grizzlies lost by 51 points in Game 1 and will still not lose the win-loss margin in the first round? It's going to be Miami and Cleveland. Yeah. Like, Miami will lose will lose these games by more than the Grizzlies lost the Oklahoma City Thunder. So great.
So it's really only Pacers, Bucks, Cavs, Heat, Celtics, Magic, Grizzlies, Thunder. So at least half of this playoffs has been really competitive. A sleeper series, the Rockets Warriors has been very fun. Like, watching Steph just kind of go back and just kind of go vintage Steph has been, to me, so much fun. I mean, he's probably my favorite player that I've ever watched play in the NBA, and to see him kind of just take over these games. And I heard somebody talking about today, it's pretty crazy to think, actually, like, when Steph went and he kind of went on that first run where they won 3 out of 4, like, he ripped the Rockets organization apart.
Yes.
I mean, when they had Harden and Capella and Chris Paul, like, he took them from a perennial contender to they had to blow it up.
They had to.
Because they couldn't beat them. And now you fast forward to whatever it is, 7, 8, 9 years later, and the Rockets, went from that to rebuilding, which took quite a while. I think they had like 3, 4 terrible, awful seasons in a row.
Yep.
Stacking up these draft picks and getting like this young, really good, really promising team. And here he is, like, tearing them down again, like, still doing it at 37 years old. So that's been a sleeper series that's been fun. The Rockets clearly aren't ready yet. Like, Draymond's in their heads bad.
Bad.
Look at what Jalen Green did at the end of was it game 4, game 3? Game 4? No, game 4 is tonight, I believe. No, it was game 4.
Yeah, this is game 4.
Yeah. So they're just not ready yet, but that's been a fun one. It's been a good first round. Typically, I feel like a lot of people tap out for the first round. It has not been the year to do that.
Yeah, this has not been the year. I still think the Pistons will probably get I think that series will go 7.
7? You think the Pistons will win the next 2?
I think so. I like them. I love the way they play.
They're gritty. They're gritty.
I'm a big JB Bickerstaff fan, and I think what's the dude? Their guard. 2 C's. Oh my God. Why can't I remember? Cade Cunningham. Thank you, Jesus. He is.
Who we were once told was not going to be very good in the pros. If you do recall.
Who told us that? I forgot about that. We saw him in high school, and we were told by somebody in the know he's not going to be very good. Yeah, okay. He's been phenomenal.
I think about that every time I hear his name.
Yeah, right. I see the Timberwolves closing us out in the next game or 2.
I think that one at least goes 6. Lakers are not. I don't think the Lakers go out 4-1. I don't think.
I would love it because screw the Lakers.
I agree, but
yeah,
Clippers Nuggets has got to go 7, right?
I think the Clippers and Nuggets is clearly going. These 2 teams they're
so evenly matched.
And Kawhi, it has been so good to see Kawhi
go
back to his normal self. You know, he's had so many knee injuries and stuff, and you just never thought he would come back and be as effective as he is.
And he is.
Just dog. I forget how good he is.
Everybody does because he misses so much time. But man, he's something.
And then Nikola Jokic is just. I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He's going to win the MVP. Jokic might be the best player I've ever seen. Like in terms of just what he does, like how he impacts the game, every play. I love it.
It is insane.
What do you think? What do you think out of what you've seen? Do you think it's going to be OKC and Cleveland, OKC Boston? Do you think it's going to be who do you think is going to come out and play in the finals?
I mean, I think Boston OKC is the safest bet. The Cavs, are they ready yet? That's my big question. Like Boston showed it. Boston finally broke through last year and won it. We know what they can do, but here's the caveat to them: they're pretty beat up right now.
They're beat up.
Drew's missing games. Jason Tatum missed a game. That was more precautionary, I'm sure. But Jaylen Brown came into the playoffs with the knee injury. I think he dislocated his finger the other night. So, like, they're not 100% healthy right now. And the Cavs are a heck of a basketball team. I mean, when you look at what they have with Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, like, they're a really fun team to watch. And they're really freaking big, and they're really physical. So I like them. I hope that's the Eastern Conference Finals, and I hope that's one that goes 7 because I think it would be really good.
Yep.
And then in the West, like I don't really know. If I had to put my money anywhere now, it'd probably be Timberwolves Thunder, right?
Let me see.
It would have. I mean, the Thunder play either the Nuggets or the Clippers next, and then it would be Lakers, Timberwolves, Rockets, or Warriors.
I just don't think. I think the Warriors are going to beat the Rockets based off of veteran presence alone.
But can they hang with Minnesota? I just don't know if they can hang with Minnesota.
I don't know. That'll be
the Rockets don't have an enforcer to give it back to Draymond. Julius Randle will give it back to Draymond. They have an enforcer.
Yeah, Alperen and Goons, Steven Adams. Those are Alperen and Goons beating him up pretty good. I don't know. I could see the.
You could see the Warriors going to the Western Conference Finals.
No. I think it's going to be out of the next round matchup between either the Thunder, Nuggets, and Clippers. I think that whoever wins that matchup will probably be in the. I think that's one of those 3 teams will be in the championship.
But I'm talking about Western Conference Finals. That's what I was saying. Timberwolves and Thunder in the conference finals.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think if you get the Nuggets in there, if they just are going to have so many issues. The Thunder are going to have so many issues against the Nuggets. I think if the Nuggets beat the Clippers, and I also think the Thunder's going to have a really hard problem with the Clippers as well. I just think the Nuggets Clippers series is just so evenly matched, and they have it all, right?
They're becoming battle tested for the next round. That is for sure.
Yeah,
but it'll be fun to watch.
And the Thunder were not tested at all.
No. So, but then there becomes a question of does the rest help? Does it hurt? Who knows? But
it'll be a fun series.
I think especially from here on, we're in for a treat. It's been a great first round, but let's wrap this one up. Kenny, if you are watching on YouTube, we appreciate that, obviously, but you can like, subscribe, and comment there. If you're listening via podcast, whether that's on podcast. Been talking. I'm not used to talking this much, guys. It's usually Gabe and Kenny usually roll a lot more than me. If you're listening either on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, any other podcast platform, you can like, subscribe, and comment there. Also, we appreciate you guys for joining us again this week, and we will see you back here. Go ahead.
I want to give a shout out to the Ounce of Hope. These guys are. My throat has been kind of jacked up. Like I have some sinus stuff going on. Without this seltzer, it is a Delta 9 THC infused seltzer from Ounce of Hope. They have a spot over there off the old Muddy's Bakery. Remember where that is? Off of Sanderland. They have a dispensary there. They have so much good stuff. This seltzer has gotten me through this episode because my throat has felt like it's gonna close up at any moment, and this one is helping. So shout out to the Ounce of Hope, guys.
Yep. Shout out to Ounce of Hope. If that's something you delve into, go check it out. But like we said, once again, appreciate you guys for joining us, and we will see you back here next week.
Thank you for listening to On the Bluff. If you enjoyed this episode, leave a rating and a review wherever you download your podcasts. Also, like and subscribe to Bluff City Media's YouTube page. Head over to www.bluffcitymedia.co for comprehensive coverage of Memphis sports and how you can become an insider.